me just a minute. Sorry about the wiggly cam. I want to make sure this is legible. Sorry about that. Just tilt it up this way. Okay. All right, that looks like a pretty good angle to me. There I am. Good morning, everybody. Let me get my iPad set up. We're going to continue on from what we did yesterday for a few minutes. We'll see how long I can keep this kind of stuff going, and then I'll get to be a better teacher, have a curriculum that is worthwhile, then we'll make some slick videos for public consumption. Let me just pull this up so I can read the chats. Okay, good. All right, you guys, I can read your chats, so you guys let me know if you can't hear me or anything like that, if there's any problems. Ben Henderson with the caution zone. Thank you for $2. Can you drink beer in class? Beer will be confiscated and drunk by the teacher. So use your own discretion. Okay, so I'll call this one Fill the Gaps. This was yesterday's talk about layouts that I'm going to erase. But maybe what I can do is focus on, I'll probably take this one panel here in the middle, which kind of has a complicated perspective arrangement. So I might talk more about that in detail, so filling the panel. So filling the gaps. Here's what I mean by that. Hey, Art's in the chat. Nice to see you. Okay, so no doubt there's some excitement and enthusiasm in comics right now, more than it seems, definitely more than there seems there has been in the last few years in terms of making new comics. So new people stepping in and trying it out, stepping up to the plate, and trying to hit their own home run. I think there's some market dynamics have changed within comic books that makes taking the risk more logical than it has been in the past. So there's more of a level playing field with the way the sales are and the way the market is and all that kind of stuff. So it makes more sense to take a risk. And the pay parity, yeah, it just makes more sense to take a risk right now. Anyway, yeah, like the video. So I glance over to read the chats. I'm not losing my train of thought, but maybe a little. So a lot of people want to get into this space, and that's evident by the floodgate opening on Indiegogo, which I kind of knew would happen. You kind of saw that coming. I mean, once people see that, oh, there's, you know, Cyberfrog makes $500,000, Red Rooster makes 175 grand, and Ravage does really well from Ben, who just kind of came on the scene and made a big splash, and Jawbreaker's other books. I think Liefeld is doing a book on Indiegogo. I have to check in on that. I haven't been checking up on the Indiegogo stuff lately. So, but it's clear a lot of people wanted in when they thought there was an opportunity to get their work out there, to make a profit on it, or break even on it, get it funded, make a book, and that's awesome. It shows that there's a lot of interest and enthusiasm in this space. So that's really, really good. A lot of people want to be professional artists or work in the um, comic book world. Um, so what I mean by fill the gaps, and why did I title that this way? Uh, so it's clear, I think now looking back over the last handful of months, that there is sort of a delineating line over, well, the line is, did you get your project funded on Indiegogo, or did you have some issues? If you had some issues, maybe you didn't market the book correctly, maybe it wasn't a good book, maybe it wasn't the book you should have led with, maybe you have more growing to do as a creator, as a talent. Like I said, marketing is a big one. Maybe you didn't market it correctly. Maybe the characters or the books just aren't resonating, and you got to go back to ground on your ideas or try something else. But I think what has happened is a testament to the amount of enthusiasm about people wanting to be in this space. So when I said this to somebody you would know. About where we were going in the next 6, 7, 8 months. I said the comic books is an aspirational business. People want to be in comic books because it satiates this sort of desire for adventure and creativity, and I think it also speaks to us as this sort of thing where we want to be celebrated for our achievements, for our talents, and recognized for our stick-to-itiveness and our abilities. So I think all that kind of plays into this desire of wanting to be a part of whatever this business is. And that's another thing. I was talking to a young man, I don't know, 6 months ago. He desperately wanted to be in comic books, and I don't think it was quite going to work out exactly like he thought it would work out, or he thought that as the business was constructed and where he was at, I don't think it was just going to work quite right. So in order to try to get his head around it or set him on a path that was best for him, I deconstructed the comic book business. So there is no business. Forget about the industry. What we're doing now is actually taking some alternative routes, looking for new avenues, new ways to market, that kind of stuff. So in order to think outside the box, you first have to deconstruct the box. Box is, 8 sides. You can take them all apart. You can rearrange it however you want. I don't know, whatever, right? So the deconstructed comic book business, you have just drawings on paper that are strung end to end to tell a story. It's really no different necessarily than making a movie, which is photographs end to end, played on a reel. It's just you multiply the images by thousands. Sure, there are different dynamics at play in the way these stories are both can be told and perceived by the audience, but it really is a sister medium once you've deconstructed it all. So what I was trying to get his head around was all it is images tied to text on paper, and then it's a hook you bait for a customer. And if the hook isn't, the bait isn't nice and the customers aren't there, if it's not presented well, then the customers won't show up. But you need an audience, you need the talent and the stick-to-itiveness to get the product done. But if the product is just these very, very simple things, and I say that to try to get their mind around this idea that there's this industry, right? And it's there's only certain ways in to do it, and you gotta pull all the right strings, and it's got to be all just right. And I don't think that's quite right at all. You need is some talent, some knowledge, and some customers. And then if you have all those things, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter what the industry is doing. It just matters if you can find your customers and expand that customer base. And so, I left off comics as aspirational. So my theory is that a lot of people want to be in comic books because it scratches all those itches. So the customers, in many cases, it's not in every case, some are just patrons of comic books and the arts or storytelling or adventure or whatever the case may be. But my assumption is that a lot of people are attracted to comic books for the same reason that I was. It's because it satiated this desire to be recognized for your talents, to achieve something that's sort of difficult, that rewards your creativity. So it's aspirational. Anyway, I'm kind of going on about it, but the point is, you want to get in comic books. You see what's going on in the industry at large, which is a shrinking market, unfortunately. Well, and you see what's going on with Indiegogo, and then so a lot of people moving to more independent directions. You want to participate in that, but it's a huge risk to try to launch your own book without a name, a reputation, and perhaps the talent's not quite there yet. So, do what I did. Do what Elizabeth and I did. You fill the gaps. You find a niche. You can serve, because it doesn't matter. You don't have to. There's this thought that you got to like create your own comic book to get into comic books. That's not true. I didn't do it that way. All you have to do to get into the industry in any particular way is find someone in the industry that you think you can help. So you fill the gaps for them. You find a specialty. It might be lettering for now, as you work on your writing talent. It may be coloring as you work on your painting or cover design talent. It may be inking while you work on your penciling talent. It may be that you're just really good at marketing, but you don't have any characters of your own. But if you can find a way to make other people money, if you can find a way to make Ben Henderson money, I don't know if you're listening, Ben, if you're still in the chat, you can find a way to make Ben Henderson money, he'll probably put you to work. So it doesn't mean necessarily drawing a book or writing a book, but just finding a way to help someone else be more productive. And then you start to build, you'll make some money, you'll get experience, and you'll build a relationship with the person that you're helping and all of his friends or her friends or whatever as the case may be. So this talk is addressed to, I should have led with this, addressed to the people that are trying out their hand at Indiegogos, wanting to create their own characters, and I think that's exciting. It is not a, I'm not criticizing that at all. I love it. But not everybody's having success, so just chin up about it. You want to be in the business, just find a way to help the people that are already there and that have an audience, and cultivate those relationships and be someone who can find a specialty and find a way to help make other people money, and in the process raise your own status and station and experience. That's what I meant by fill the gaps, and that's why I titled this video that way. So I don't know, that was just popped in my head this morning when I was getting ready, so I thought we'd address that. If anybody has any questions about it, let me know. Ben Henderson sends me $1.99 and says, yes, it's all about the project success, not about the ego. So yeah, letting go of your ego. This is an industry that, I don't know if you've been around it or watched it for any particular period of time. There are a lot of egos in this business, a lot of egos in this business. And then you think about, and I think about this, so a lot of egos in this business. There is a rock star attitude from person to person, not painting with too broad a brush, but it's kind of stupid to have that attitude, in my opinion, because you think about the total number of customers that buy a comic book, any given comic book on any given day, and they wouldn't fit inside a decent sized building in a decent sized city. one building in one city of the entire world. So it is, we're a pimple on the butt of an elephant. So don't get too big for your britches. Just find a way to expand the tent and get more people in. So I'm looking for questions, and then I'll move on to a drawing lesson. Scanning for questions. Professor Mitch, not you. Oh, the Human Shrug, thank you for $5. They just sent a wave. I'm waving back. Looks like they praised Keck. Okay. Looks like people enjoyed my rant. Thank you for tuning in. You're making me get better at this. You're helping me get better at this, and then get my thoughts together, and then we'll do more formal videos later on. Well, my hair looks like a mess. Ben Henderson has a question. Tug has 3 nipples. I hear that is strange. Only if they all give milk, I suppose. All right, so I broke down a page yesterday. And we talked about page layout on a whole. I think we actually covered a lot of complicated topics, because a lot of complicated decisions go into deciding where object placement and camera placement on a page go. I'm just going to focus on one panel out of that particular sequence just quickly, and just isolate it to one panel and talk about perspective and panel arrangement and this kind of stuff. So this was panel 3 from yesterday, page 20, I think, in the Futurist, or sorry, Red Rooster. What did you miss, Wildcard? You missed my rant on how to be of service to independent comic books and to build your reputation. So that's what you missed. Antoine says the ingredients for Indiegogo's success are professional quality work. I agree with that. 2, marketing, product awareness. Totally agree with that. You need, but I think part and parcel of marketing is reputation. Reputation and marketing, I think, go hand in hand. So I'll add to Antoine's point, marketing and reputation. So I think you can get the marketing right, but if you don't have at least some reputation, I think it's more difficult. I think you have a guy like Ben Henderson, who was in the chat earlier. He's still there. So he came in without any reputation in comics, but he had all this experience writing screenplays and being a successful businessman. And so reputation comes with you from other places. People pick up on that. So it's not like he rolled off a train like a hobo and said, I'm going to make comic books today. So, okay, what was your last point, Antoine? Oh, 3, establishing consumer confidence. Well, I guess that has to do with reputation. So, can you do what you're claiming to offer? Yeah, so I agree with Antoine on all those points. Yeah, he's getting on to me. Yeah, you got me. I need to read all the way through before I make my comments. Character, says Ben Henderson. So reputation and character. Oh no, he's asking. Elric's asking a question. What's more important to you, a character-driven story or a narrative-driven story? A character is always most important. That's why in my books you'll see a lot of stories about family. And one of the reasons I plot so judiciously in advance of running a project is because the characters in the story, their story arcs have to be like what happens to them, their journey, what I like to think about as like an external and internal struggle, and how they're resolved or how they're presented at the end of the book is paramount to them. That is the narrative, because if the character doesn't change in any meaningful way or overcome any meaningful thing internally and externally, then there's no story. You might have a cool gimmick in which you could place an interesting character, but if your character's not interesting, then even a great gimmick, what do they call it? Like, what's that word now they use for screenplays? Forget it. Anyway, you won't have a story. Ben Henderson says he does the same internal and external struggle for each character. A big believer in that. So sometimes the character can solve his external struggle and think he's won. This makes a great sort of Act 3 false ending. Then the character has to then realize that it's this internal struggle that was the real thing all along, and then they have to, go through this emotional catharsis for the real finale of the story, even though they've overcome maybe their external issue. So anyway, I'm getting like way off into the weeds here. Is it normal that you can't hear me? Oh, I think my microphone is slightly blocked. I don't have any good way to mic this up right now, so I'm just talking in my camera microphone, so audio is going to be spotty. Again, this is just are we down? Okay. People say they can hear me fine. Anyway, I'll get a better solution for this going forward. And I need a haircut. All right, let's break down this panel. All right, so this panel was, I think, the most complicated perspective-wise of yesterday's layout page. This is Red Rooster and the mayor, photographer. They're on the tarmac or near the tarmac of the runway. Strong Boy and Rascal walking towards the motorcycle, sort of ignoring this exchange here in kind of maybe a frustrated way. So there's lots of nuances to this. So we talked yesterday about designing an entire page and all the information that has to be constructed and organized. This time we'll talk about isolating what's in an individual frame once we've sort of decided on the shot. Put the horizon line up here. If the horizon line is up here, then essentially if your horizon line is above the center axis of the panel, then your camera, you can get away with pointing your camera down just a little. And by that I mean you can have a vanishing point down here. I think what I did, because I wanted the edges of your vanishing points, if you're going to go with a more of an extreme perspective, everything's going to be warped. Everything should appear slightly warped towards the edges. And I think on this panel, I decided to put the center axis over Strong Boy because his movements were more subtle. So I put my vanishing point at this left third, which changes things just a little bit. And then Strong Boy's top of his, he's the tallest one, and the top of his head was basically near the perspective grid. Let's see. And I put both of my other vanishing points within the frame itself. So by shortening these perspective points, which might normally be out here, that makes turns this into more of a fisheye type shot. You do that when you want to show a lot of information from side to side, because the more you expand these, then the tighter your shot's going to be. The more you shrink them in, then the more that your camera angle goes into a fisheye, and you can capture more of the elements in the background, but the more distortion you're going to have in your shot. Mustard Tiger says, perspective is a harsh mistress. Well, welcome to my life. Okay, so we've sort of established this. So we'll have Strong Boy. Walking away. And at this stage, I kind of think of the characters like just dolls or dummies. Dog. This is just a little bit too extreme. I might move that down. Yeah, that was just a bit too extreme of a shot. So the top of his head is about at my horizon line. And so Red Rooster is going to be a little bit shorter than Strong Boy. And the mare will be a little shorter than the Red Rooster. And then the photographer, even still, might be a little bit shorter than, he's going to be way off. So he'll be the most exaggerated. So the ellipses would follow some of these. You use your perspective grid then to think about how your ellipses might be distorted. This just takes some practice. Damn. Sorry about that. I've been frozen for 2 minutes. 3 minutes. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Okay, what did you miss in the last 2 minutes? I'll go over it if I'm redundant. Sorry about that. So Red Rooster or Strong Boy. Let's give him his costume. So his top of his head meets the horizon line. Red Rooster's a little shorter, so he's going to be a few inches shorter. The mayor even shorter still. So he's a few inches short of the horizon line, and the photographer even perhaps still shorter than that. And I was talking about distortion here. So your ellipses will follow these sort of perspective grids that these axes that you've put here, and you just sort of have to practice. So you want to consider, for me it's a little more intuitive, but you kind of have to consider how an ellipse would be distorted along a very distorted edge of your perspective grid here. So the closer you get to the edge, the more things become distorted. This leg isn't quite right, but we'll figure it out. And there's Rascal the dog. So you can see things are receding into the distance here. And here we might have, this might be the runway, because they're on, they're at the airport near the tarmac. And you might have a field in the distance with some trees. And the last thing to figure out okay, so we're still good. Is the motorcycle. Again, you're dealing with ellipses again. How did I solve this in my layouts? So here, this is the panel we're dealing with. I'm just reconstructing all these elements again. And so you can see, since the motorcycle here is what would it be, about the top of it's 3.5 feet shorter, and it's further in this distance. You almost have a top-down view of this motorcycle. Well, you do have a top-down view of it, but you know, this is about understanding perspective and how objects shift and change. All right, so drawing this little line here back to this other vanishing point. Again, the two vanishing points are very close together within the whole frame, which creates this distorted effect. Just to go over that again. That gives me a center axis line for the motorcycle, and then I have these vertical axes, and then I have these depth axes. Should get my parlance straight. Okay. And so, but now I can see how the things might be distorted. So we'll start with the sidecar, because it's the closest to us. And it's got a fin on it, of course. motorcycle itself. It's a little tall. Right there. You kind of get it. I don't think it's quite as nice as the drawing in the sketchbook. Okay. Questions? We're still on the air. So we took this little example that we made yesterday. And we created this scene around it. Motorcycle's still not right, but, you know, whatever. Okay. Questions? I'm going to close it up. Should I zoom in a little? I think the motorcycle looks, see there's the horizon line, or close to it. The motorcycle looks a little too tall, so if I had this to do again, I might just move it down just a little bit, because if he's 6'4", then 6'4" is right here. It's not too far off. It's not too far off. You can measure head lengths, essentially. But as you go backwards in space, then the head lengths get shorter and smaller. So you have to consider depth. If you're doing an object that's, you know, let's say this is 15 feet away, then the head is going to be 15 feet away smaller as you do your head length. So you have to consider depth when you're doing sort of head length measurements. One thing to consider. Antoine's asks, use 3-point perspective to determine the height of objects. I think, yeah, that's kind of what I was just talking about there. So I think about it in terms of head heights. It's a pretty good unit of measurement, I guess, for this anyway, because there's heads in every shot, so you can, you know, and heads are the most important thing in a comic book because they're the ones that do all the talking. So where the heads go is pretty important. So it's a great way to think about measurement. Ben has a question. Do I plan on getting my own Red Rooster costume? Well, I'm not going to wear it, but I'm going to have one made. I'd like to anyway. Will I post finished pages up on my social media? Yes, I will be. Just the ones without spoilers. And so, all right, I'm going to cut it loose. Eat some lunch. Thank you all for tuning in today. We'll try to touch on something else tomorrow. If I can come up with another topic, let me know in the comments if you want me to cover something in particular. Speed escape stars. So I'll just keep doing this all day. I'll keep going all day long. He's got his hand on the mirror. because he's the dominant player here. Of course, he's the red rooster. So another thing I think about is one more lesson I thought of something I think about beyond perspective lines. Think about how a cylinder would look. If your horizon line is up here, you're on the center axis here. You're looking up. Here will be flat. And here it would be down. So in this case, you are seeing a cylinder. You're seeing you can neither see the top nor the bottom of the cylinder as it hinges between it sits above and below they sit above and below the horizon line. So that's just an example of how you can think about the warpage of the scene, and you think all the ellipses below the horizon line you can see down on, and they get narrower and narrower and wider as you go up and up and up, more of a circle. But if you're near the horizon line, then on the horizon line you can't see one at all. Is that making sense? Sort of? Great. How much of my drawing is conscious math, and how much is the math done by feel? It's almost all by feeling. I'm following rules that are real, but I'm following my gut most of all. It's like I know there are rules that work in the real world, and I could, if I wanted to be really judicious about it or waste a lot of time, then I could plot them all out. But that sounds really boring. And so then you understand the real world rules, and then I interpret most of them intuitively. I just know that they're there. I just know that they're there, and then just work as if there are some hard and fast things that I can't bend or break. So, okay. Mustard says, would be cool to watch you do some involved whiteboard drawings just for fun. I will do that. Kim John G style. Yeah, I'm gonna do that later on. We're gonna do more anatomy lessons, characters interacting with each other. We'll break down figures in perspective, that kind of stuff. But yep. Thanks for tuning in today. Like, subscribe. Put the link to Red Rooster in the description. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.